Well, with all of today's developments, one of the main questions folks are asking is, will this new trail of text messages help or hurt Omar Mateen's wife as this investigation continues? Michael Wilds is a former federal prosecutor and professor at the Cardozo School of Law. Wendy Patrick is a prosecuting attorney who has prosecuted dozens of hate crimes. Wendy, what do you make of this investigation so far and what we're learning about the involvement of his family, particularly his wife?
Well, these text messages are very interesting, Sandra. What woman doesn't know where her husband is in the middle of the night? The question is this ignorance in the moment, or does it reflect a greater ignorance of his activities? We know now this man was a triple threat. He was radicalized, armed, and angry. Whether the anger stemmed from identity or ideology, this trio of risk factors was something that we would expect that she would have known about. But was it a secretive relationship in the sense that he kept this secret identity from her? Because remember, that's exactly what those grand jurors are going to be considering. What did she know? We know that they went to places together, but was it casing or not? We know that they went to the gun store together, but did she know why they were buying ammunition? Those are the things that those grand jurors are going to be considering, her level of knowledge.
Michael, are you able to conclude anything from those text messages?
Very hard to see if it establishes the intent, the knowledge, or the actions taken in furtherance of what would be leveled a conspiracy theory. This, unfortunately, is but a pattern of recent attacks. We see that the hostage taker in Paris of the kosher supermarket actually used his wife's cell phone to speak to collaborators. The Boston Marathon widow, despite computers and photos and bomb-making materials and a URL showing that she went online to see whether or not she would get a reward after her husband martyred himself, was not enough to level charges. The charges here, the emails, the forensics of what the FBI and our federal prosecutors are going to glean, and the deliberate sense of propriety that they need to take in the wake of a violation into the LGBT community is so delicate.
And Wendy, this transfer of property also that Catherine Herridge just laid out, this share of the property that he owned to his sister and brother-in-law that he sold for, it's been reported by Fox $10, or other outlets have reported $100, but nonetheless a very small amount. What does this tell you?
Well, it's more circumstantial evidence, or at least it could be argued that way, that this man was headed toward martyrdom. Now, we also know that he's made statements like that in the past. So what we're doing is we're looking at the aggregate of circumstances. But when we're talking about charging the wife, it gets so much trickier. Remember, with all of the evidence we had in the Boston Marathon bombing case, Catherine Russell was never charged, despite the fact that they were apparently making the bombs in her apartment. And I also got to say, I'm frankly quite surprised we have as much information as we do at this point, because typically these investigations are more private, because nobody wants to compromise the integrity of an ongoing investigation.
You can make the case, Michael, that we don't really know where she is. They're telling us she's down in Mississippi. We don't know her whereabouts. We don't know who's talking to her, what they're looking at. We don't know real specifics there, other than that they're looking at their electronic devices.
You don't want to compromise the methods and procedures as they collect all the intelligence. The truth be told, I am shocked that she even went to see the FBI without an attorney. Is that naivete? Is that because she really had no idea what was going on? Or maybe she did have representation and there is selective information being out there to make sure that the federal prosecutors, that our intelligence sources can see, was this gentleman acting as a lone wolf? Are there other confidants? Are there other people that gave him material aid? Bottom line here is that this is an ongoing investigation. This was an extraordinary violation into, a sacred place. If this had been in a synagogue, if this had been in a church, it's no different than it was where young people, as our president today said, gather. And the violation is heartfelt, and these deliberate, very mature process has to go. And one last word, right now, we have to make sure that all of the equipment, the intelligence, the cell phones, and all of the material support that would go to these individuals and the people that would want to help people would be taken away.
All right, we got to leave it there. Michael, Wendy, thank you.
Pleasure.